This episode contains sensitive content. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Culture Podcast, where we uncover the hidden mechanics of high control groups, their tactics, and their impact. And we speak with the survivors who broke free. My name is Derek, and I'm your host.
My name is Trinity, and I'm also your host. On this podcast, we explore cult life as real people who have lived through the life-changing process of leaving a high control group.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Culture Podcast. I'm here as always with my co-host, Trinity. He's about to take a cup of coffee, but I interrupted that. Hello, Trent.
Hi.
And then, I'm Derek, of course. And then for people that are watching the video on Patreon, welcome to the podcast, Scott.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Scott's a filmmaker, also a former Jehovah's Witness, second generation. He was raised in Wisconsin. And we have him on because he was the director of a film called Witness Underground. It's a documentary about, a group of friends growing up, and I really like the idea that it's not only about growing up as Jehovah's Witnesses, but also there's some themes with music. And I've never seen something like this, to be honest. I think this is very unique in this space. And when I was watching your film, I could also relate to the constant mindset of I can't do this additional artistic thing or be myself in this lens, because there was the constant, you got to focus on the religion, you got to focus on preaching and that kind of theme. So again, welcome to the podcast, and we're gonna talk about you and kind of that film, and we appreciate having you on.
Sounds great. Looking forward to the chat.
Let me read the summary of the film real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Witness Underground. Within the confines of an elusive cult, a vibrant alternative music community thrived, deprogramming themselves through art. Poignant live performances punctuate tragic losses to beautifully illuminate shunning by Jehovah's Witnesses. And I haven't watched it, so I have a million questions for Scott. Derek's watched it.
Yeah.
And
Scott's watched it.
And Scott, I think, is familiar maybe
at least 1,000 times.
And it's interesting to me because this was my experience. So just real quick, I was a musician from 13 onward. And I got linked up with a couple Witness friends from California who were in postmodern scene and emo bands. And we started learning about everything. We learned about, what it means to be a friend, and about the world, kind of in secret, because we were leading this kind of double life, And then those same friends, we literally helped deprogram each other and support each other over years. So wow. Crazy to see the parallels in my own life, Scott.
That's incredible. I'd love to hear more. So I knew this story that the film's about intimately because I was there for it and discovering it, but I was also in my own separate bubble in music. But after the films come out, people from different parts of the world, but especially California, Oregon, Washington, and part of Australia, a few different places, also in China, Witnesses have had music scenes. And I've always been curious, what was the scene like? Because I wasn't there, and is there art to represent that scene? I'd love to hear it and check it out and hear your stories as well.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, there was, man. I mean, shoot, I knew there was this whole underground scene of Witnesses in California that were doing rock the right way. And, they would have the Witness shows and keep it real clean and friendly and warm. And, and then the real show, Thursday night down at the bar or whatever is the real show. So
that's funny.
Really cool.
I think you'll enjoy watching it, Trent.
Yeah, I can't wait. I really wish I would have been able to watch it beforehand. How should we do this, Derek? Should we start with his life story?
Well,
first?
It's funny. I think that Scott's going to know this question. It's the first question. Who's the villain of your story? No. Scott sent me this thing online, and I teased him. I don't know if you remember that this was going to come, but What a
Instead of a
great
reel
question.
on Instagram where someone's like, don't ask what people do for a living, ask them who's the villain in their story, which I love. And I thought about it a little bit at the time about annoyingly, it's basic as hell, but basically I was thinking it's probably the religion itself, because like the corporate leadership and their propaganda, their worldview. But then, of course, I've had like narcissistic people I've dated that I've like after a decade rewound the clock to figure out like, oh, I was trained to be attracted to this kind of complex situation where I have to walk on eggshells. And if I don't have to earn love, then it's not real. And I'm like, well, where'd I get those ideas from? And that's probably from the religion too. So I guess it's the religion, which is annoying because it could be a little more creative than that on a podcast about leaving Jehovah's Witnesses. But
Yeah, it's funny because, yeah, obviously we're going to talk about Witness Underground, but I told you before we started recording is the way my brain works and the thought process behind a lot of these conversations are the people. And so throughout this conversation, I definitely want to talk about you, and just kind of, your early upbringing, your life as a witness growing up, what that looked like, and eventually get to that point where you finally obviously left, and then eventually got to a point where you wanted to make this documentary. But I think the entry point for me is just quickly kind of what was your like growing up as a Jehovah's Witness? What did that look like?
So my parents, the frame of how my life was in that religion is a bit different than the average story in that my dad joined it when I was like between like 6 and 8, he was sort of like getting involved with it. And then as a family, there was a decision made to stop celebrating birthdays and Christmas and start going to the meetings, church sessions every week or 3 times a week, which it was like a lot of starts and stops with a bunch of kids. And my mom wasn't that enthused about it. So I kind of had this, and we had like no one else in our family was a part of the religion. My grandparents had joined it, but I didn't really know them because they lived in a different state. And they were the influence of why my dad started doing something locally. So then my mom was sort of like holding the line of like, well, I want the kids to have a lot of normal experiences. So we did play team sports with kids from the town. And we spent like every couple of days, we were at our cousin's house. We had there's like 5 of us total eventually. And then there was like 5 of my cousins. And then we had other cousins that would like come in from other places. And we sort of just like 14 kids running around all the time. And the neighbor kids we were friends with. So like that kind of environment where they all had their own religion or were just not really religious. I had a lot of influences that were pretty standard for the average American probably, and then not that standard for Jehovah's Witness. And then later that maintained, it's like I had a few kind of distant cousins who were in the religion as a teenager and became closer to them because we had this shared experience of being in this tiny town with not a lot of options. So we had like normal friends doing normal things, but we also went to Jehovah's Witness stuff.
It's funny that you call them normal friends.
And they were all exceptional individuals.
Yeah. Well, I'm more thinking of like, if they're normal innately, the Jehovah's Witnesses are not normal.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an internal view that you have. So let me recap if I heard this correctly. You kind of became a Jehovah's Witness around 8, or, because of
started getting indoctrinated around 8.
Do you remember what life was like around that time, where all of a sudden you're like, oh, the rule book for life is changing?
The distinct early memory of the change was my dad sitting me down in my bedroom with a cassette player and headphones before bed. And instead of reading a book or telling a story, he was giving me their pink book had a cassette that went along with it. And I had to like listen along and like follow along. And there'd be questions and pause the cassette player and like think about which sentence of the 4 sentences might be the answer and then push play. So it was just like a classic document or indoctrination session that was very artificial because it came out of nowhere. And prior to that, there was a big sit down with like me and my brothers around Christmas time with like a pile of wrapped presents, and they were like,
Mm.
"Listen, this is the last
Oh.
Christmas. We decided that we're not going to do this anymore. So enjoy these presents because it'll never happen again. We will keep on getting you presents. It'll just never be on this particular day of the year. But we'll go on vacations more or something with that money that we save on toys." We had an endless amount of toys and gifts over the years. Too many. My mom's kind of hoarder-ish. So
Was there resistance with you and your brothers?
I think they framed it in a way that was like, we're going to keep on having a good time. So don't worry. We're like, okay, whatever. We don't
Even
know.
and even at the level of like, oh, not just like Christmas and religion, Christmas and gifts, but was there resistance like, we don't want to be a part of this, or everyone just kind of went with it?
I think we were young enough where we didn't really know. We're like, I guess we're going to church, but church was never fun. Going to the Jehovah's Witness meetings was never a good time. It's like, this
Yeah,
is like
when I
reluctance.
talk with people, when Trent and I talk with people that aren't or weren't Jehovah's Witnesses, they have like separate areas for kids. They
Mm.
have, Sunday school and different like it's like, no, we were like in the auditorium learning about Armageddon at
Yeah,
the same time and place that everyone else. And
with
it's
adult
like
language.
with adult language. Yeah, yeah. And it was like, no, we didn't have this like ease in. It was like, no, here's the Revelation book and let's look at scary imagery.
Hmm.
So I totally understand.
Yeah.
So, and then what's your family structure like? You said you had some brothers.
Yeah, older brother, younger brother, and then two little sisters that came kind of later on, same parents. Yeah, it's
And,
like
Okay.
there's like
and
a
are they
family of three
still
boys.
are they witnesses? Are they out in?
So if you were to like analyze my family when I was a teenager, you would say like, oh, like they're not really taking it very seriously. And then when we were all on our own, my brothers kind of like didn't go very regularly, especially my older brother. Um, but he would tell you he believed, but then like have his secret rated R DVD
Mm-hmm.
collection and all of his explicit lyrics music. He was big into hip hop, and my mom used to continuously buy us like illicit like rap albums, and
Well,
we were big into metal and punk rock back in the '90s. So
there's a
they were sort of
curiosity there. Sorry to interrupt. There's a curiosity there because from what I'm kind of hearing so far, and please correct me if I'm off. Um, your dad was really in. Your mom was kind of in. So you kind of got duality there. You got a
mhm.
little bit of taste of the world and a little bit of taste of being a Jehovah's Witness, and that
Yeah,
no doubt impacted you and your siblings because you were getting multiple messages about the way life should be.
yeah, definitely. That's definitely
So,
true.
if I could ask, then, so you're 16 years old. Do you believe in Jehovah with your heart and soul, or are you just like, I'm just doing this?
It's kind of a confused time because some part of me is like, all right, so there's this entire class of humans that are part of this exciting global group of people who are trying to warn people and then like help them help themselves. Some part of that is like really cool that it's international.
It's
I
like
didn't see it as a
heroic.
heroic, yeah.
Yeah.
But then like all my friends, so like I said, I don't really have any friends that were like my same age in the religion from that time until I was like 17, um, where my dad was trying to influence me to get to like go to this next town over to meet kids that were my age, which I did. So all my friends up to that point, and I was like big into music at that already from like 14, 15, 16. And they had bought the neighbor's house after he had died. So like that became our music studio. We had like a drum
Cool.
set. I ended up getting an analog organ. We had bass guitar, multiple guitars and guitar amps and like effect boards. And we would throw parties for like once a week. We would have people over playing music for like about 2 years, maybe a year before I started hanging out with Jehovah's Witnesses. And I was like, they were like, oh, you can't hang out with us because I started meeting Jehovah's Witnesses that were musicians in the next town over, which I was like, oh, there's some cool people. I didn't realize. So I'd already like had this whole framework of like what it means to create healthy friendships. and have a shared common interest that had nothing to do with religion or ideologies. Like my friends were Lutheran, Protestant, Pentecostal, Catholic, atheist, and Wiccan. I had like pagan Wiccan friends that would like hang out with all the time, that like use Ouija boards and it would tell me what happened. And I was like, wow,
Whoa.
like maybe the Jehovah's Witnesses are right about that.
Yeah,
Sounds
yeah.
insane. Which like weirdly, there's the whole like dark side of faith. Yeah, the Jehovah's Witnesses are good at that, had a huge influence on me. But those are my actual friends. And the Jehovah's Witnesses, I was like, you guys are so weird. And like, you're just repeating stuff I read in the Watchtower. Like none of my real friends talk like that. And I would never, I would never repeat those things that people say from the stage. They're all like liars and cheating and faking it, aren't they? Like, are you lying and cheating and faking?
So you had a deep sense of self-awareness, and you read the room accurately, even as a kid.
And
Did
I think
Did
so.
you feel like at that time, like 16, 17? Well, quickly, were you baptized at this time already?
So I did it. I was like,
Took the plunge.
I took the plunge at 17 and I didn't tell anyone. It was like a secret. I didn't even think of it. I was just like, oh, this is what people do. I guess and I was being influenced. Like my dad was like, you should get baptized.
Oh, for
You should
sure.
go through it. But then wasn't vocal about it. Because like, I don't know what's normal in this.
Sure.
Do people like talk about their hopes and dreams about baptism? Like I just never said anything. I just got dunked at the assembly hall.
I was also baptized at 17. And my question for you, because I definitely, and you know, again, very conversational. So if throughout this, if you want to ask us questions, by all means. But I felt like what you're saying is like you kind of had one foot in, one foot out at this time, even though you did make that personal dedication to Jehovah.
Yeah, but I mean, even the framing of the dedication you're verbally making is to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania. It's like I truly believe in this book publishing company from the 1800s. You know.
Well, you say that, and I 1,000% agree. But we all know,
Yeah.
like
There's a lot weighing on that.
You didn't think that then,
Yeah.
or did you?
I mean, I thought it was strange, but also like, I guess that's what it is. Like, this is God's true people.
Did you actually have the prayer? Did you pray to God and dedicate yourself and like have that intimate conversation about how you're going to be His slave for life to accomplish His goals?
I don't think I had that prayer.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people do, although we have a couple people on, the pod, in the terms of the Jehovah's Witness religion, because, I do know that, some people might be listening that didn't grow up as Jehovah's Witness. So some of this might be, a little bit like they don't really know what's going on. But, part of the process for baptism is you have that personal dedication to Jehovah, and then you take the plunge and get baptized. And some people like truly believe, and they actually have that heartfelt conversation with God. I didn't. It was pressure.
I did. I took a week. My prayer was a week-long session of like dedication. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was leading a double life the entire time.
That's also their weird way of framing the world, right? Like you were exploring a curiosity and playing music.
Yeah.
Like, was it really
So I
truly separate and double?
Yeah. I wanted to talk about that because I sensed that house and all the music equipment and stuff like that, everyone coming over and playing music, was probably a turning point for you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us like what that was like and what changed?
I mean, I had those friends, and I feel like I was trying to figure out as you're a teenager, like, who is a real friend and what is it like to have a relationship with someone else? And like shared interests really made it easy and to grow a friendship. And I don't feel like I had those friends until I was like a senior in high school. So I had a couple of years of doing stuff with them before it felt like we were really close, and I had deep value in it. And you're sort of navigating like, who are these people really? And like, we're all just sort of trying to figure it out. But yeah, I feel like that I look back on that time as really foundational to building strong, meaningful friendships that I still use and like lean on those skills to this day. That also informed how I chose people to spend time with in Jehovah's Witnesses. I was like, oh, these are the kinds of people I would like to find. And oh, we have a shared interest in music. Let's play music. And then I started having these friendships with Jehovah's Witnesses if they were artists, if they like to do the activities I like to do. So like snowboarding, skateboarding. And like that was a higher criteria to me than whether or not they believed the watchtower was accurate. And in fact,
Yeah.
the closer I got to those people, I was like, this is all bullshit, right? Like, you don't.
Yeah.
And I mean, so on some level, we're like, you can't say things like that. So you have to wait until you have established, like, can we have these honest conversations? And it's like, I'm still trying to figure out, is God real or not? Because I pray and I get like, it's a one-way send, but there's no like acknowledgement of receipt of message.
No
Like
read
now
receipt.
when
Yeah.
you text today, there's like a little thing. It's like, oh, they saw it.
Yeah.
They might have ignored it, but they got it.
It's interesting because I recall similar sentiment growing up in Phoenix and finding, you like when you grow up in a bigger like community like Phoenix is, it's a sprawling valley of multiple, different cities, Scottsdale, Tempe, Mesa, all kind of surrounding Phoenix. And I was given the opportunity to have that wide area to find my people, because they definitely weren't in my congregation, my local congregation. Um, and I found that, yeah, without even really realizing it, it was like, oh, like I'm gonna get their number and hang out with them and go to shows and concerts, and not really realizing that majority of witnesses thought what I simply thought was just enjoying my young years, 18, 19, 20s, whatever. And then if I would tell someone, oh, I went to a dive bar last night, and after like this show, they would just be like, what? They would be like, whoa, like you're not allowed to do that. And in my mind, it's like, I didn't do anything wrong other than going to see music and then going to, get some drinks afterward and then go home.
Mm-hmm.
And I just found like, oh, okay, well, we're not going to be friends. Like you have a very different viewpoint of what you think is right and wrong, and you're out.
The dive bar is the filter.
Yeah.
I always thought it was interesting, and we've talked with some real sharp people, on the pod, and everyone sort of starts to get it. Like the people who get it just get it, and they usually get it young, like in their teens, where they realize not everyone's an ally here.
Mm-hmm.
I have to pick and choose who my friends are going to be and what I say to who, and I have to play the system. I have to game the system with the right people if I'm going to survive here.
Yeah.
And so like we were all just, it's so funny because I remember being 17, 18, whatever. I've got my band. I'm doing my thing with like my 30-year-old bandmates. And I just, the people that I was hanging out with, like Derek, like Brooke, like some other family and friends that we have, I could let my hair down with, and like we could drink together. Like I was underage and I was maybe having drinks too, or we would party together. And you have these moments where you're sharing something that's wrong, that isn't right per the witnesses, and you're accepting it. You're both accepting it. And then a bond is formed and you realize I can do this with this person.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the extra layer to it is you do that, say Friday night, and then Saturday morning you wake up and put your service clothes on and you go out and preach.
Or even better, you go out and preach with that same car group, and you listen to your favorite music and stuff, and you count your time, and
you're kind
of
like living this like dual life, but you're doing it together.
Yeah, very like, interesting thing, man.
Yeah, and it's like you don't have realization fully of what you're doing at the time, but I do agree with the sentiment of like, oh, these are kind of safe people.
Yeah.
Now, when you were hanging out, Scott, with some of these people, did you, even though you were kind of questioning, you kind of found these people, did you truly have the fear and believe that you could possibly die in Armageddon? And you believed in the structure enough to have the fear to follow along?
I think the biggest influence on me, the two biggest influences were my dad is quite a believer. And I think navigating, having a foundational human in your life, and we had a lot of respect for each other. Where my mom was pretty skeptical of things, and she would vocalize it, at least when it was just her and I riding in the car or something. She had a lot of issues with the people in the religion as well. And my dad was just like he was like trying to toe the line. And I think that was really like shook my internal worldview a lot, because I respected him. And if he could believe it, then there must be something to it. And I was kind of on the edge of like, I don't know if this is real. I like read all their. I tried to figure it out. I was like constantly trying to figure it out. I was also like reading tons of books on physics and like popular science and National
Knew
Geographic,
it.
and like trying to absorb like how does the world really work. And but like, was I a true believer? I mean, I think the other influence besides that was my the idea of demons,
Mm.
and like that put the fear in me. There was never like, oh my god, angels are amazing and will save us. There's never that feeling like love, or I can trust that God's team of whatever spirit beings are going to like help guide my path. I don't think they ever like encourage those ideas. But like demons were always there at the gate, at the door, looking in the window,
Yeah.
following you around, trying to trip you up. And then I would have like strange experiences where I felt uneasy, or I saw something, or I had just a really spooky thing happen, whether it was with Jehovah's Witnesses or with my regular friends, that I couldn't explain. And then we would talk about how crazy that thing was. And then like I was like, well, maybe the Jehovah's Witnesses are right, because they can't stop talking about demons. And I feel like everyone's true faith comes from that fear of
Mm-hmm.
the demons.
Yep. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's the fear structure that realigns you back towards it.
Well, there's so much to fear. You mentioned demons, but my God, you fear the world. You fear failing Jehovah.
Yeah.
You fear sinning, like it's just literal. Every meeting is,
Yeah.
you got to fear something. It sucks.
Were there any big moments where that fear did realign you back, where you were like maybe gonna go maybe a more
Go
secular
deeper
path?
in.
Yeah, either way. Yeah.
Oh.
And if there's not, it's totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, I have some really creepy, weird experiences I still can't explain. um, and I like went fully like, I'm gonna be atheist now, which made all the fears go away, which is almost like a hack.
Mm.
Like just be atheist and none of
Yeah.
it's real, and then all of a sudden the world was like simpler and there weren't things to be scared of. So like, after getting out, it was sort of like a realization, like, oh, I'm in a cult and these people are insane and I have nothing in common with them and I want nothing. I will never come back to this building, and I'm an atheist. Fuck.
So
Well,
All
that
right.
tell me about that moment for you when you were
Yeah.
like, when you had that realization, oh shit, this is a cult.
yeah.
It took way too long, because I think I had like social issues from like a teenager in the religion to like through my early 20s, with which the film kind of covers a period of my early to mid 20s, more or less. But then like I still was in it, and I was like still trying to figure out how do I navigate this space as I become more of an adult. But then I had this moment I was living in Colorado. It's like, in brief, Wisconsin. I grew up there, left at 22, went to Minneapolis, which isn't far away, a few hours. That's my home city, basically, where the film takes place. I got to meet all those people, do the music things. And then I went to Florida for half a year, then Ecuador for half a year, Seattle, Tacoma area for half a year, and then Colorado for half a year. So just to give a framing of like, I was bouncing around, and I was 27 when I finally I was in a Spanish congregation in Colorado. And I was dating someone. I moved to Colorado because I was dating this Jehovah's Witness, my first Jehovah's Witness girlfriend. And that is not my first girlfriend. So there's also that angle,
Yeah.
or at least love interest, if you will. But so she was like the first person I was like, oh, here's a Jehovah's Witness I could actually like put up with, or like was cool or intelligent. But anyway, so I was dating. I was at this meeting, and it was actually kind of random. Where like a guy I knew, he was fine, was giving a 15-minute talk about LGBT something, and it was just like the most homophobic rhetoric, like anti-gay, like hatred, just spewing and continuous. I was like, oh my god! And then people were like nodding along. And I was like, no, oh my god, these people are fall like. Not only are they like for so much of my life in that religion was like, all right, they're gonna say a bunch of nonsense, but there's like something of value in there somewhere. I have to figure out what that is. But then this was just like, oh my god, they're like nodding along with this guy. They agree. And then I just had this overwhelming creepy feeling hit me, and I was just like, oh my god, this is, I kind of briefly mentioned earlier, but like, this is a cult. Like, I probably didn't voice that word, but it's like, they all, like, this is, I have to get out of here. Like, I don't belong here. I need to get out. And I just had this like strong feeling of, I will never be in this kind of space for the rest of my life. And I got up in the middle of the talk,
Oh.
and I left I left the Kingdom Hall. And I like, the only time I went back was this one time to an English congregation with my girlfriend. We like made out in the book room, and she told me she was done. And I like, I'll go with you one last time. And we like went and made out in the library, and then
Wow.
Dude, that's
awesome.
actually fucking epic.
So
That's
you actually
epic.
you had the moment where you truly decided to stop having one foot in, one foot out.
yeah.
And
And
you were
I think
27?
yeah, and I think it was a lot of people do, what's it called, the physically in,
Yeah, Pimo.
mentally in is like an average member,
Yeah.
and then physically and mentally out is you're going, but you like don't really believe it. I think I was PMO, physically and mentally out, most of my life. Not all the way out, but I was just like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I don't even know if I believe God's real, or like how, so many
I think
questions.
that's kind of the tragedy of life sometimes, where if that's the framework you're giving, that's what you're working with. And that's like the really unfortunate thing about indoctrination at times is, in my opinion, parents are trying to do the best they can, and they choose a lane, and they're hopeful that this is going to provide a way of life for their family, potentially salvation. And it's like they sometimes don't realize like the damaging effects of not allowing choice as a parent to teach many different things. Here's what the world offers, and I allow you to kind of align with what you think works. And yeah, when it's like the thing that you choose, the lane that you choose is Jehovah's Witness or Mormon or Scientology or whatever, pick a cult. This is what happens, and you just go like, I guess this is the lane I have to go down because this is real. I think it's really sad.
Yeah.
So you have this wake up moment at 27. What does leaving look like for you?
Yeah, what ensues from there?
So that same night that I walked out of the Spanish congregation, where I was like, this is culty, and I don't want to be a part of it for the rest of my life. I called my girlfriend at the time, which is a pretty new relationship. We were like long distance for like half a year when I was in Tacoma. So we'd like see each other once a month, flying, one of us to fly. And then when I finally moved to town, we were getting closer. But then that night I called her, or after I like left it was, church was still happening. And I was like, we have to talk. Can you meet me in the park? And I was just like, I don't know how to tell you this because it might end up being our last conversation, but I love you. But I'm also done with the religion. And that was the first time I used the L word. And I was like, so we had this chat. We were walking around the park that we knew pretty well. And she's like, well, I have to do my own, research. And I'm like, of course, you should do that. I'm not going to, can't do it for you. And then I basically pitched like, why don't we just sell everything we own and then leave the country and then see what we figure out in the world. And we did it. We like sold everything we owned within it. She like took a couple of months. She like saved face with all the people she knew for the last few years living there. She's not from Colorado. And then was going to meetings and like unwinding. And then we'd have big talk sessions about like, had heart to hearts about what we thought about everything. And then, but I'm like, my whole life has been kind of trying to figure out if this religion's real. And she's never thought of whether or not it's real. She's like, a believer. So for me, I was like this big breath of fresh air, like, I'm so grateful I don't have to do any of that nonsense anymore. And she's like, oh my God, the whole world's insane. And like, I don't know, I'm supposed to hate all the outside world. Now you want me to join the outside world? And it's like, relax. It's so much nicer out here. And then we traveled from Mexico. We flew to Mexico and then like traveled with the goal of going to Argentina overland. And then we ended up going to Ecuador where I had lived. So like we faked being Jehovah's Witnesses for like a month in Ecuador. Just like saying hi to friends. We didn't go to meetings or anything, but I got lots of skeptical elders trying to figure out what's going on with us and how we're traveling together and whether or not we're married and what congregation we
Oh,
come from, and trying to figure out, interrogated basically by everyone. But
it's so interesting because, and please continue with what you're going, but I want to just interject this little thought that maybe listeners that didn't grow up JW, the thought of a man and a woman solo traveling together that are not married,
Disfellowshipped, both of you.
big no.
Immediate shunning.
I've gotten to the point now where I had to I'm hearing your story and I forgot that was a thing. Because normal people, it's like, well, of course we're just going to travel. What are you talking about? But that was another one of those control things where it's like, oh my gosh, like that is sinful. Even if you guys were just friends, there's no way that you're allowed to do anything like that. So,
Dude, me and your ex-wife had to have a freaking chaperone when we would hang out as just friends all the time.
yeah, that's just
I
one of
mostly
the.
broke that rule my entire life. I thought it was outrageous that people would need to have a chaperone to hang out with their friends.
So
If you can't
you're.
control yourself around the opposite sex, like you have a serious problem.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Everyone's just a target, at all times. Like, yeah. So
Surveillance culture. I was just like, I'll never, like, no chaperones for me, guys.
for sure. So you're in
No, I got away
Ecuador,
with
and what is this time of life looking like?
So that was like really cool, and we ended up buying like a stack of paper books of like, how does evolution work, and like what does it mean to find meaning in your life if God's not real, like the atheist way. And some of these books were recommended by people in the film. Actually, we can get to that at some point. Eric in the film was quite close to me at the time because when I was in Minneapolis, like especially the last year, we spent a lot of time together, and so he was kind of like getting out of the religion like a year before, maybe, well, the last year that I was there was like 2006. And what's cool about my friendships there, which I didn't talk much about, but similar kind of vibes, but it was like it's all music friends, but we would trade books. So while we were all Jehovah's Witnesses and doing our 50 hours a month, auxiliary pioneering, preaching work every once in a while, and just doing normal things, going to church stuff. We were trading books. Like we would go to the bookstore and like then we'd buy like at the time it was a pretty big deal, the four horsemen of the atheist apocalypse. So like
Nice.
these guys, Dawkins, Hitchens, Denton, and Harris. These guys. Are you
Love
familiar?
it.
We read all these guys, so we were like trading each other books.
Derek, write those down and text them to me, bro.
All right,
Well, I want afterwards if you could message me those books, that'd be great.
God Delusion being like the most impactful.
Sure.
Have you heard of that one?
It's the God Illusion.
God Delusion.
God Delusion. Okay.
Yeah. Richard Dawkins dedicates
Dawkins.
chapter 6 to the Jehovah's Witnesses. And it's amazing. And it's basically to like the evolution or creation book. He's like, I've gotten 6 copies. If I'm remembering 6 incorrectly. He got 6 copies. That's what I remember. He got 6 copies of this book from Jehovah's Witnesses about evolution and creation. And he's like, their argument for every single point they make is it's beautiful, therefore God. He's like, there's other reasons why we think it's beautiful.
I love the therefore conversation. It's like you can't just be so simplified as whatever this is, therefore.
But he goes on to make like lots of critiques in that chapter specifically for my brain, which was amazing. And then so we were training. So like when I left the religion, so we got a collection of books and a lot of them were influenced by those friends because a lot of the books that they were recommending we hadn't read yet. So like, let's get this collection of books. Then we're traveling through Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, sitting on the edge of a river with like a rope swing, like reading, like holding one book together and like slowly turning a page, like, no shit.
Wow.
This is how elephants evolved. It's insane. We have evidence for just that one creature. Incredible. What's next? And like having our minds blown by like the last 150 years of science because it was sort of off limits just was an incredible way to like do that with someone else also kind of going through the same thing.
Really cool, actually. I don't think many people have experienced that thing with someone. Really cool that you're able to share that.
That's why people join the Witnesses. And that's like every young man's dream, right? Is like you find this woman, you share in growing spiritual knowledge together, and it's like every witness man's dream. And then here you are, you leave so that you can actually have that dream in a way more pure and free way of your own choosing. And I think that's beautiful, dude.
It was definitely that for those, especially those first few months. We were just like sucking sponges, just like taking it all in,
Yeah,
and then
just
having
roaming
like have
around.
someone to debate about it
Yeah.
and try to navigate those new ideas and how they contrast with the old.
So what happened next?
Um,
Wherever you want to take it to. It's like if you want to stay in that era, by all means. But if you feel like it jumps to another place in time, by all means.
there was kind of a fun chapter after that where we ended up moving back to Colorado for whatever reason, work, life. I kind of felt aimless traveling, and our goals to go to the, go where we were planning at the beginning, like didn't feel aligned. We ended up going back to Colorado and living together in deep sin. It was amazing for a while there. And then,
There's a bunch of holding hands.
we ended up moving in with a friend of mine from Minneapolis who's also living in Colorado. And then my then girlfriend's sister lived in Colorado as well. So she was around a lot. And then there was like my friend from Minneapolis, he had met some other guy. So like we were all like, my then girlfriend, this friend from Minneapolis, we were living together with someone else. And then we got this like fifth person who also was a Jehovah's Witness, had been a Jehovah's Witness and had left. But somehow he was like, just don't ever bring it up. I was like, so you're keeping it a secret that you're an ex Jehovah's Witness? He's like, yeah, I just don't want to, like, it's just too much. It could complicate everything. I was like, all right. So for months we lived with this guy and like partied with this guy. And one day at some like, my ex's sister like worked for these really wealthy people who had like kind of a mansion on a cliff overlooking the Rockies. We like have parties or like just, house parties, hangouts there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, come to the kitchen to that guy who was an ex-witness. And I was like, got something to break to you. This is kind of a fun moment. But we were having, so before this little moment, we were like living together and like decompressing and like sharing ideas and going and doing stuff that kind of we weren't allowed to, and just like enjoying life. We had these like posse of a bunch of recently ex Jehovah's Witnesses to kind of like decompress and process. So that was actually really, really cool. Yeah. But then this other guy, this fifth guy, bring him into the kitchen at this house party. And I'm like, so it's going to break it to you. I'm sorry we didn't tell you earlier, but we are all former Jehovah's Witnesses. And he's like, fuck you guys. No,
you didn't know. That's awesome. Great.
But what happened? So true. And he was like, no, oh my God. Like he just had this like, the world's crushing in on him. He's been out and like feeling free for this whole time, but he's been like sucked in by this like weird side cult.
Yeah, you got an XJW cult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say y'all almost succeeded in making a new cult.
Yeah. Yeah. But then that became like, for me, I was really overwhelmed by that environment of being around people that had these same mentalities, and it'd be like once a week, someone, whether it was me or someone else, would have like some absurd, insane thing happen from their family because they had left the religion. So it became this like, oh man, I was having a good week and now I have to deal with your trauma. But I didn't think of it. I didn't have the understanding of how to do boundaries and separations. So then it became this like really heavy place to be, because no matter what, there was like if it wasn't my own drama or heaviness or toxicity in some family or old friend reaching out or causing something, then it was someone else's. And I was like playing therapist to them. And then at some point I was just like, it's too much. And then it was like a lot of pressure on my relationship with my then girlfriend. So like I broke it off, and then that whole friend group like kind of fractured in some ways. And some of them moved away, then I moved away, and it just became this sort of like, had been a really powerful chapter. And then it became this kind of like ugly end to a chapter where mostly it was me pushing it to be, I needed to get out, but I didn't have money or a healthy way to do that. So I'm not so thrilled about how everything went down, but for the most part, we had like maintained some friendships through that, but most of them did. And they all moved to Portland later. So they're all living in Portland. They still hang out all the time, which is great for them. I'm happy for them.
When
I think we've
you
done
when
a
you
different
look
thing.
at that time frame, like I guess what are some thoughts that come in your mind about why it was so helpful in that space with those people, and then ultimately like what were the feelings and thoughts and emotions about why it needed to stop?
The healthy thing was like if somebody's going through something as a as like a pretty deep friendship, like we knew each other in, we helped each other transition, and now we're out. So it's sort of like this. We're kind of like landing together. Where not everybody survives the process,
Sure.
and I think that gave us a really strong sense of you need support and you can get support, which is not everybody goes straight to therapy, and I guess we were trying to provide that to each other. Um,
Which is
I felt
good
like it was,
natured to do, but it does take energy, and we are bad at it naturally.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. I'm sure some of our reactions were like unhealthy as well, to how to
it's like a
handle it.
bunch of
And
people struggling with trauma. What do you expect? Especially we're
yeah,
all raised in cycles of control and fear, and yeah, it's not going to go well all the time without some help. You know.
and we use alcohol a lot, which I think Joe's Witnesses are pretty like alcoholic culture in
I was
general.
going to ask about that. So, do you have any familiarity with like AA or sobriety?
I went once, years later, like 5 years out of Witnesses. I went with a friend. Is like my friend's romantic partner. She's cool, and she's like, "Come to my AA thing. It's my 7th year sobriety anniversary."
Oh, okay.
And I went, and I was like, actually, this is kind of a fun chapter. Great transition.
Mm,
So I was like living in a commune kind of situation, not a true commune, but like a co-living mission based situation. Not mission, religious mission or military. It's just like they had a focus. Um, and they were some of my community in general. There's like 200 people in Boulder, Colorado. There's a few houses like this. So I joined this one. Anyway, so I went to this thing with her. And so in the commune, there was this Mormon couple, ex-Mormon couple. And we shared camaraderie because like we're like a few years out of our cult. And so that was kind of a fun hang with them. And they were cool, like punk, vagabond types, and like into punk zines and doing poetry and music and stuff like that.
it's
And so I
awesome.
went to AA. Yeah, they're cool. Still keep in touch with the guy. Um, anyway, so I go to AA, and it's like it just feels churchy. It just feels like a congregation.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and there's like coffee and snacks. Like it's like a what is it, book study night? The
Yeah,
old
it feels
Tuesday
just like a
evenings
book study night.
at
Yep.
someone's house.
I always think about the imagery of Fight Club, like when he's always going to the meetings,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
and
sit in a
it's just like,
circle.
yeah, it's just like I don't know. Me personally, it's not my scene, and I know Trent is someone who's in AA and is gone through it. You got to use whatever tools that are available that you can work with to make you navigate through things. But for me personally, it's like the structure of the God system within that was never something that sat well with me. But Trent, you've spoken how you've understanding that have kind of created your own system within that system.
Yeah, maybe we can hear from you before I say my strong opinion about it.
First of all, like I respect your opinion. I whatever, AA is interesting. And let me say the reason I brought it up first. I do believe that alcoholics need other alcoholics to not drink. Um, because no one knows the plight of an alcoholic like an alcoholic. It's just a way that of thinking, of feeling, and understanding the world. But with ex Jehovah's Witnesses and leaving a cult, I think it's the opposite. I think you actually need to unplug from, those spaces for a while and
Mhm.
cleanse. I think that it can be detrimental to have too many around because of what you said. Oh, too many damaged people, uh, not used to living in the world, used to being given a handbook and saying play by it. And what really you need is to build a sense of independence, build the sense of self care in the form of boundaries, counseling, like learning how to actually function in the real world. And you can't really do that with people. Sometimes it's a really personal journey. And then as far as AA, the God aspect really trips me out, and I've actually had to make my peace with it, and it's hard because I'm hard agnostic. I'm the type where I truly believed that God was real, while also I've been into science since I was a small child and could read. And so I'm like probabilistically, you know, there's there's maybe other life out there. How did it get there? Was everything just did God?
Evolution or creation.
Yeah, exactly. It's like who knows actually. It's really hard to know. So I've been agnostic. But essentially, like what I realized was I think that the principle that they're trying to teach you in AA about God and a higher power is about humility and submission to, morals and good. So that's like my high level take. And I frankly, dude, I love the coffee. I go there, I drink coffee. I get to raise my hand and comment on things that that helped me or that I'm worried about. Uh, I have
Did
friends
you put it
there.
into your own words?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. You can't just read it from the book. You have to say it in your own words so you can impress people.
It must be refreshing though to be in kind of a similar setting, but be able to be yourself and like really be truly authentic.
It's cathartic as fuck because, and I have the thought all the time, this is what witnesses thought they had.
Right.
You come as you are. There's no judgment. I show up wearing whatever I want. It's more about the mental space that you're in and where your heart is at.
Well, I
You
think you
know,
touched on it too. Like, there's a big aspect about community. We all need to be a part of some sort of village.
Yeah, that's
So,
super important.
yeah, so I think that's a valuable part. Now, tear it all down, Scott. What are your thoughts?
yeah. Hit us with the other take.
Oh, so I just had this moment that ended up kind of like fucking up my week really badly because of what I said. So that's what's coming. Um, oh, and I want to also pitch to you a thing that's kind of fun about AA, like a non-God aspect. So I'll get back to that. So, okay, so I'm at this AA meeting with this friend, mostly, yeah, she's a new friend, but friend of a friend. And yeah, so there's all these aspects. I'm like observing the way people communicate, the formula of it, the standard like call and response of like, this is my name, I'm an alcoholic. And they're like, hi, Trent. And like everyone
Yeah.
says it simultaneously. There's like little things. I'm like, oh, it's like interesting that I don't know that that's what happens, but that's what happens. And then we take a break, and then everyone's outside addicted to something else, chain smoking cigarettes. And I'm like, is it just alcohol that's a problem? Because I feel like that's also dangerous.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of having these, just taking it all in. But I was like, it feels good. It feels like it's healthy on some level, so I don't know. Who knows? She's 7 years sober. Sounds like it's got some value. And if you're an alcoholic, 7 years sober sounds pretty good. So then I go back to the commune, and then there's like 16 people living there. So the kitchens and like this common spaces are like filled with someone all the time. And it was probably like midnight or something. So not as many, but this guy, Max Mormon, was there. And I was like, yo, I just went to an AA meeting. He's like, oh, how was that? And I was like, new favorite cult. And we like, just like stupidly high-fived and just like had a big laugh about it. And that's about as tear down as I got right there. Just like a
That's
joke.
funny. No,
Well,
it's
one of the things
funny as hell.
you when you were talking, Scott, that came into my head, and I think this is something we all share, is being a skeptic. And I think that there's some healthy levels of skeptic. I can say it, being a skeptic. But I do believe that there is kind of like a harsh over skepticism about things that can be dangerous. But I agree. It's like, dude, I'm not going to leave one cult to join another. It's just not ever going to happen. I'm always going to be
Recult. There's something really fun about joining a cult.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as well, no doubt. Good teaser. Yeah. So you're in this environment, and you're out. What's next in kind of the life tale? You got some sweet ex-Mormon friends.
Maybe bring us up to your design, where you start thinking about the movie and or the documentary, and maybe we start going there.
I made a pretty big life change. I was going to school at that time for engineering, and then, but it was still deep in the recession from 2008. So it's 2012. I finished school and then was working in engineering a little bit. That was my day regular job, but I kind of wanted to start a company, and then things weren't really working out, and everyone I was working with were like extremely conservative engineers, and I was just like, I can't hang with these people. Like I don't trust them. I don't like them. I don't want to be around these kind of people. And I just made this decision to move to Vietnam, which is kind of random chapter. But then I leaned in. So basically, I realized after living for about a year in Vietnam that I was like, I, I was just teaching English and just like living a life, having a break again. And just like realizing that like I could struggle in USA, or I could like do this, teach English, and like I can be financially okay. So it's like, oh, I'm kind of life hacking, and it's challenging, really challenging culturally and lifestyle wise, but I was enjoying it. And I was like, I could actually use this place to develop a life passion, which is filmmaking. So started, I got a nice camera and lenses, and started learning and like finding professionals there and like asking to like intern with them. And so I was living in Vietnam, the capital, pursuing this passion, like 30 hours a week, mostly making music videos and like helping these like professionals on short documentary projects, and like getting the skills, basically working for like next to nothing. But I was like, that was just an agreement I made with them to help train on this, to get these skills. And because I had this idea in the back of my head that had been brewing for a really long time. And this is a piece I didn't mention earlier, but while I was a teenager, in the like influenced by the Jehovah's Witness and into my early 20s, living on my own, I was like buying films about Jehovah's Witnesses, because I'm like, they produce tons of movies and videos about the religion from the religious perspective, but what are people saying about it on the outside? Because I didn't have that filter of like, that's scary, you shouldn't look at that. I was like searching for it on the early internet, like who's made a movie about this? There must be something. Like there's no way, like people are getting kicked out all the time, people with different perspectives, people from different religions are looking at it and being critical. So I started buying up all these DVDs, trying to find narrative and documentary movies about it. And I would then I would give them to friends in the religion, like, oh, I watched this film about, and
Whoa.
they probably thought I was insane. Like,
Oh
and I
my
never got in
God. I'm
trouble for that.
surprised they didn't label you an apostate.
I was definitely like, we had that because my mom wasn't super into it and she never got baptized. And our family was the only new ones in the whole like region. They were like, they can do whatever they want.
You were probably just casually marked, like, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe
Keep an eye
don't,
on this guy.
yeah, don't really, go deep. I did have one interrupting question, so I apologize, but my thought went to this. Multiple times in your life, you tell us about moments where you decide to leave, and in
Mm-hmm.
some instances, leave the country far. What did leaving mean for you?
I had this deep desire as a kid, because I lived in a very small rural town that didn't have a lot of things going on in it. Like the best option was go to the local technical college and learn how to use Microsoft Word, or become a factory worker,
Yeah.
which is what my dad did. And my mom was like a postal worker. And it's like, there's so much going on in the world that's so much more interesting than what's happening here. I have to get out and see the world. And I think that was one of the things that I was like aligned with about the Jehovah's Witnesses. About, I was like, I want to see like, what is it like to live there? And if I'm going to be in this religion, that's the one avenue like I could be down with, which is kind of like an adventure, see the
Like
world.
missionary work, need
Yeah.
grader or whatever.
Yeah. So I was in Ecuador to explore that, but I did it on my own terms. I was like, I'm not going to get approved by an elder body. I don't, I don't trust them. I don't like them. I don't respect them. I will
Love
never
it.
be an elder or ministerial servant ever. I won't do it,
Love it.
but I will go check out Ecuador or whatever country. And I would, yeah. So like that was the thing. I ended up finding like surfer Jehovah's Witnesses who are living on the beach, like having their like very innocent double life thing where they're like, don't tell everybody that this is why we're really here. We're
I,
preaching.
it's so funny you say that because it brings up a memory. I remember being in a structured ice hockey team, like full, like suit up, refs, full league. And I was in it with a couple other witnesses, one of them being a ministerial servant who I think spent some time at Bethel and has now moved into Italian congregation and pretty high up. And it was always like, don't tell anyone. Don't tell
I'm
anyone.
a
This is our
real one because
secret happy place.
I remember going there in Scottsdale and seeing you play, bro.
Nice.
That's right. You are a real one. It's funny too now. I tell people that and they're like, "Really? You played ice hockey?" It doesn't align with what their vision of who I am is. It's like, no, dude, that was great times.
And he was the
But
most aggressive, most biggest, baddest one out there, huh, Derek?
that's storytelling right there. So you're in this time, and I guess as we kind of pivot towards your thought process about your accumulation of friends and memories, what's the pivot? You're learning how to make movies, and then you
And you have this
finally.
idea brewing.
And I know you've made a previous documentary film that didn't have kind of the angle of Jehovah's Witnesses and that, but what is the pivot after that where you're like, it's time, I want to make this film?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think what really happened. I came back to the States from Vietnam for work, and I got back in touch with that crew that I lived with of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses in Colorado, and they were living in Portland at that time. And so I hit up my friend from Minneapolis, who had nothing to do with the film, but he knows everybody and was friends with them too when we were in our early 20s. And I was like, hey, and we were really comfortable. We traveled together for months and like lived together for like a year, in multiple years in different places in Minneapolis and Colorado. And I was like, how do you feel about exploring this topic? Because it's been like a decade and I'm starting to get like, I've got these documentary skills. I'm thinking about developing like a series project. So I was in the States for work, making good money, but I had the holidays break time where the company wasn't operating. So I could take a couple weeks. I was like, how do you feel about like taking a road trip and like, just like microphones on, we'll talk through some stuff. And I had gotten all these skills in Vietnam with camera work. I had done I went to school for photography in Minneapolis, and in my high school, we had like a darkroom and Photoshop and a documentary program in high school. So like I have some skills, but like I got new updated ones with new equipment and modern upgraded. So I was like doing a lot with it for a couple of years there already leading up to this, and had this idea of brewing, and I talked to a whole different filmmaker, like mentors about it in Vietnam. I'm like, yeah, you should pursue it. And so I interviewed someone in Vietnam, and then I was in the States where I interviewed my old friend, where I could really like let loose and get deep with him, because like we share like a lot of worldview and communication and culture. And so we did that, and that became like I spent a lot of time. Went back to Vietnam with this footage and like spent like half a year like cutting all these ideas up, which is just like it was the worst way to try to make a piece of content. But it's just it's just like it's like decades of cognitive dissonance. Like how do you wrap it into a story? What do you say to someone and to an audience to capture ideas? And I've tried all kinds of things to put these together, and then I hired an editor to like help. She took my 3 videos I made that were like 15 minutes each ish, and she like put them into like one 15-minute video that's like way more concise. And that became like pilot for what I called XJW coming out, using the LGBTQ language of coming out to people publicly that you have a different sexual orientation than the standard.
Can I ask a question, a personal question?
Sure.
You've mentioned that the LGBTQ talk was the reason you left, and now this is your first project. Can I ask why that's close to you?
That's interesting. Yeah. I think I am personally, I don't have that worldview or identity. But I've always had people around me that have, in my hometown, in my school. And I think I'm just like, it reveals something about my core being a humanist, that here's this group that people have felt, and that religion has felt my whole life, that they're attackable, they're hateable, they're an outgroup that we can mistreat. And that on the humanist side, like tears apart at my core.
It hits your
like,
justice
ethics.
center.
Yeah. Of justice. Yeah.
Okay.
It's wrong. Like, why does someone care so much about how someone loves someone else, right, or is intimate with someone else? What does that matter? Like, it reveals more about the hater than it does about the person who's like struggling with their identity and then finally landing and feeling good about it. That you can find, like, however you want to attack them or whenever in that process. don't
It's a
be an asshole.
stifling of genuineness
Yeah, actually.
and of love.
Yeah, I love it.
And
Yeah, if anyone follows Scott online, you'll see that is a continued passion across many things, which I really love. Um, but where did we derail? What were we
Okay, so
talking
yes,
about?
XJW coming out.
yeah, so I guess I can tell you who this guy is because we made a bunch of public things together, and his name's Ross. So there's a bunch of film videos about Ross on my YouTube channel, which is now called Banana Island Films. Just had to rename it to be more general because I do lots of different things. And that was like the pilot for that project actually coming out, the series that became the movie Witness Underground over time. But it's actually Ross. We share friends with most of the people in the film, so it's kind of a cool like. I had this realization doing basically what you're doing, Derek, which is when you like start with people that you know and trust because you're actually going to be like hitting on some pretty heavy personal things,
Yeah.
and that's kind of I started with someone I knew and trusted very well, and then when I made the film, I kind of leaned back into that. Like I could be interviewing random people I find on the internet who also went through this. Like I could have found you guys and been like, hey, let's do an interview and you'll make it a movie. But like we don't really know each other, even though we have this shared background. So I leaned into people that I knew and had like spent a lot of time with, and we'd grown together in a bunch of ways and left the religion around the same time. So there was like a lot of camaraderie, but they're also musicians. So yeah, that pilot project turned into this. We kind of used the Ross video and a few other interviews I did and compiled it into like a trailer that was sort of like, this is kind of what we want to do. And we crowdfunded it. So I like was like, it's kind of funny. I had this thought, and I'd been on the internet since like the beginning of the internet, but I was like, I wonder, there's no way that I'm the only person who's thought of like leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses. There's got to be like so many other people. I wonder if they're on the internet. And this is in like 2018.
It's such
I've
a
been
product
out
of
a
time.
decade. Was that?
It's such a product of the time. Like
Yeah.
you have this innocent thought process, and then even now, which ultimately isn't that far away from that time, where it's like, dude, there's so many people that are out. Pick your
Millions.
pick your cult, pick your high control group, and there is a community, which I think is
Were
wonderful.
were you on XJW Reddit in 2018?
I'd never even considered that there's ex Jehovah's Witnesses on the internet. Like it just was like, why would I look on the internet for that information?
Internet's bad, man.
And I
I,
had been using it forever. Like I was finding like DVDs, movies made about Jehovah's Witnesses on the internet. Like wasn't like there wasn't like a mail order catalog for that.
That's funny.
And it was so I was like, I wonder there's gotta be a community. I wonder if somebody would care about this movie idea that I have. And then I was like, oh wow, there's like 50 Facebook groups in like 20 languages around the planet. And there's also oh yeah, XJW Reddit, and I'd never heard of it. And then I was like learning about the history of like the news groups. I ended up meeting a guy because I started doing public stuff about the crowdfund. Guy from Loveland here in Colorado who had like has the largest library of Jehovah's Witness published literature outside of Bethel, New York, Brooklyn.
wow,
And he invited me over, and like we ended up doing a whole thing I haven't released yet. But I have this
Whoa.
crazy archive. I would like to finish.
amazing.
I've hired so I like tried to get it. I tried to do more of the topic, but I hit a lot of walls, including hiring like 3 different people to help me edit this stuff.
That's
This was hard
actually
to
part of
stuff.
my wake up story.
Oh,
My
yeah.
dad had all the old literature, like from the 1800s.
Yeah.
Like
Did you
and
read it?
I read a bunch of them, and that's what woke me up.
And
That's crazy, right?
it's part of my story too,
No way.
because
Okay, what
when
literature?
when I was young, I was reading at a very young age, 3.5, and my mom had walls of old literature, and I was homeschooled, so I was literally just like speed reading the shit out of all these old books. And I have my favorite one is right here, The Finished Mystery. It's like 1918 or something like that.
Is that the final red book?
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like a series of
Silver
like
Lamp
6
series.
books.
Yeah. And what was crazy to me is as a kid, those books are what got me into conspiracy theory, Freemasonry, stuff like that, because of what this. I started to have to look up the symbolism in them.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is there a pyramid symbol in my Jehovah's Witness book?
Mhm.
Like, and then I start like reading, and it was just this like holy shit moment of like,
Yeah,
this was like almost Freemasonry and weird.
you you wonder why they take it out of the library.
Yeah.
You know, for those listening that aren't aware, like there's a program called the Watchtower Library, which also then, you know, the mobile app, and it's like it only goes back so far, and then they eventually like, nope, you don't have access to these books. Yeah, I remember reading like the Harp of God and Studies in the Scriptures and Millions Now Living Will Never Die. You know, all these books. There's also, I don't know if you know this, but there's a book of the photodrama of creation.
Yeah, the Photodrama of Creation Handbook. That was the one that like really struck me as being super like out
Uh-huh.
there.
Yeah, I read that book and I was like, what the fuck is going on? So yeah, so another quick aside, but
Sorry
those
about that. We keep doing
Oh,
that to you, bro.
no,
Sorry.
it's great.
yeah,
That makes it more of a conversation.
yeah.
Um, Someone once told me in the Kingdom Hall library, because I pulled some old book off. It probably was one of the Silver Lamp series from Charles Russell. And they're like, I was like paging through it. They're like, what are you doing? And I was like, I was looking at this old book. And they're like, that's apostate literature. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's the founder. Like, well, you shouldn't read that because we have different ideas now. And I'm like, well, it's in the library. Like, if you don't want me to read it, delete it.
Yeah.
It's like, do you hear yourself?
Right.
What are you saying right now? Yeah.
I'm like, I think now that you've said that, I'm going to take this home and check it out of the library. And like,
Yep.
because I was always a little bit of an ass.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited about the project that you have with that literature. So keep us posted on that.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys can help me with it because
Down. Sign me up.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever. I have nothing.
It
but
is
time.
one regret I had as part of my leaving process. There's a therapeutic aspect of tossing everything. I remember physically throwing all my suits in the trash.
Hell yeah.
And so I made a conscious effort at that time. He gave me all those books, my dad. They were all mine. And I was like, when I left, I said, you can just have them back. And part of me wishes, like in this moment, now that I've come back to this space, like it would be so great to have them. But it is what it is. So now kind of we're at the point, I think, unless we missed anything, where you're diving in, you're making this documentary, you're working with your friends, you're starting to crowdfund.
Oh, and did you successfully crowdfund?
We did, yeah.
That's amazing.
it's
That's
so
a
awesome.
huge leap in itself.
Yeah, that was that was its whole own story.
Yeah, it's quite the process of doing the rounds of interviews and just kind of putting yourself out there, going to festivals and whatever, kind of promoting it. And the interesting thing now is and we talked about this before we started recording, is this came out a few years ago. And it'll always be out, and so I don't think in some essence there'll ever be a stop of awareness about what you've done. But at this time, you were just all in, go, go, go. So I guess tell me a little bit about that time of creation, editing. I mean, this was years of your life to get this labor of love out into the world. What was that time like?
And it must have opened up a lot. I mean, I'm assuming you get pretty intimate on the story here with these friends and what they've lost,
Yeah. It ended up being, it was essential for my like processing of my experience in life. And like, I wanted to make something because I felt like, films influenced me a lot on my perspective on what the Jehovah's Witnesses were. And I was like, this could help people, because those things really help me. And like the power of a film is like so much more than a YouTube video or one lonely podcast somewhere on the internet or a blog post somebody makes. Who knows, whatever the other things were at the time. Like a film can, like, I felt like it could make a bigger impact, so I really wanted to do that bigger thing. And then but I should have went to therapy. That was the correct answer. Which I did eventually, and it was really profound, and I'm so glad I did, for a very short duration with someone who's very qualified. And also, we credit the organization I found my therapist on in the film as the only like help resource. So I'll mention them at the end. Well, in general, they're recovering from religion.org, and the seculartherapy.org, I believe, is the the group. They vet therapists. There's like 1,000 therapists only, and they're all like vetted by this group.
That's awesome.
And that helped me a lot. But anyway, I started making this film because I was like still processing like shunning and continuous shunning. Like shunning isn't a one-time thing. You don't get like, you don't leave the religion kicked out and then like you get shunned for a day. You're shunned daily for the rest of your life. You're shunned and shunned and shunned and shunned. It never stops. And it never keeps on opening this wound of like disconnection that's so unnatural. And I was an adult. I was 10 years away from home. It didn't like the start of it. So like now we're 10 years past me being shunned when I started making this content and, but I was also sort of like never looked on the internet to find people for camaraderie. So I was like diving in for the crowdfund, preparing for like, where are humans that have this perspective on the internet and in which languages do I need to speak? And I ended up getting a funding person from Hong Kong, and we were like communicating in Mandarin.
Wow.
Because I was just like using Google Translate because the tools existed. So I was like, I can communicate. I also speak pretty good, decent Spanish at the time. And then like I have basic German and I have some, rudimentary French. And it's like the romantic languages. So I was like, I can actually like use Google Translate and actually communicate with these people in their groups that are actually Jehovah's Witness groups in their own language. So like, let's start a dialogue. And I was like posting the video and I got like the trailer in 18 languages because
Nice.
I have friends all over the world because I've been traveling so much. And
Well, the Watchtower website is one of the biggest websites available in all the languages. So you probably could have got with them to get that language technology.
In a way, I kind of leaned into that idea that Jehovah's Witnesses are so like proud of. Like we're in 800 languages. I was like, well, that means there's people in 800 languages that need this story. So I should make it a global project.
I love it.
And I reached out to lots of Jehovah's Witnesses in different languages. And like, can you help me translate this 2-minute video? And they did. It's like I got like subtitles that way.
Cool.
That is awesome.
And then a bit of advocacy there through someone who helped the project early, to like help promote the thing. So that was like quite exciting. So I had like whiteboards and I was like masterminding this whole like how do I reach all the humans? And then it was like, well, how do I reach people outside the space? Because ultimately, I think I need it to be for people who have never been a Jehovah's Witness. Because there's a lot of content already for people who are in the bubble of having already had been a Jehovah's Witness and left, talking to each other like this.
I think that's really insightful, real quick, because when you're making something, you do have to ask yourself, who is this for?
Yeah.
And if you are making something and you don't have that moment in time to think about that, you could just limit that to, oh, this is going to be for people that are Jehovah's Witnesses. And that does limit the reach of it. And it does limit how you make the product. So I think that's really key because it is something, as we talk about it, I think you did pretty well, that you did try to kind of let everyone in the world know what this story is, which I think is great.
I mean, there's different things we could have done, but yeah, thank you. And we tried. And I also hired a guy to help me out who's a friend, but he was like following the project in my story. And he's like, I definitely want to be there to help you with this project. So like, okay, you're in. So I ended up working with him. He didn't have any filmmaking experience really, but I was like, on a human to human level, can you ask the questions and write the questions and like interrupt the interviewee that I know intimately and like I know their story already, ask them questions that pique your curiosity as someone who's never been a part of any religion. He was an atheist from Rose that was raised that way. And then the editor also that would help me on the early Ross episodes. She's from Britain and she had no religious upbringing at all. So as an editor trying to tell this story, I was like, this is great. I have like someone collaborating and interviewing and then also the storyteller building the arc in the edit, being with a fresh perspective, outside perspective. That's going to help tell the story in a compelling way. And I also just like gave her a lot of trust. I was like, here's like 15 hours of interview footage with 5 people because they were like went really long. And some of them I did a couple with a couple people. So like, good luck out there. And I've never watched the footage. I don't know. I remember generally what we talked about, but like she pulled out what she thought was valuable.
Whoa.
That was a lot of trust. I still want to release the raw of those someday, or like make them into episodic shorter pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, you could almost turn it into a series and
Yeah,
just
that'd
like
be really
really
cool.
put a lot of in depth out there for people that want it.
I've got like 15 more episodes with different people too. So if you guys want to help like revive that,
Oh, dude,
cool.
absolutely. Yeah, you tell us what we can do and we'll do it. I
Cool.
mean, right, Derek?
Oh, for sure.
Right
Yeah.
there, you're doing the work right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do want to laser in on one person in particular, but before I do so, because this is just kind of where the conversation took me, um, if you were to kind of tell a listener like what this story is kind of in a nutshell, could you do that just before I kind of ask my next question?
Yeah, so Witness Underground follows a group of musician artists in a community of about 500 kids who were doing music or fans of music in the Minneapolis or greater Minneapolis area. There's quite a few congregations there. And then it follows their arc as they form bands and like do things in the community, but it's also the tension around kind of what I was talking about in my story about like, I don't know if this is real, but I also have this friend on the outside and this friend got kicked out, and like, what's real? Is God real? Are my prayers being answered? Are the demons real? But also art makes me feel good. Like this kind of chaos and like the Watchtower is influencing them, the corporate cult. But they're trying to have fun and cope. They found this outlet that worked, and then it's like people start. So it's sort of like that frame. There's 3 chapters. Then there's the frame of like people are questioning and or leaving or getting kicked out, and how does that all shake out? And then there's this sort of like we're on the outside now, but all that in the context of we made these albums on the inside, we made these albums through the transition, and we made these albums on the landing.
It's so cool.
That is
And
so
the
sick.
music's the set.
It's unlike, like I said before, it's unlike anything I've ever seen. I'm so glad that you were able to get this out there. I think the interesting thing is sometimes you might in a vacuum think like, oh, this was released years ago. It is its audience has found it, and it's just not true. Like I think people over and over will continue to find this in their time, because the thing that's really unique about coming out of a cult or high control group, and I always think about this with this pod, is we're so far removed on our journey from that we're in a different place mentally, but it's like someone could wake up today.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think is really powerful, is like they could have that wake up moment and then find this podcast or your film or your podcast for that matter. And it's like these things are, I don't know, I just think really impactful, and I'm so glad that you were able to do it. Now the question I had was, and this is also impact for me, this was really emotional for me, was Ryan Sutter. Are you able to kind of talk about him a little bit as one of the people that was interviewed in his story?
Yeah. So Ryan is an interesting character that kind of kicked off the whole thing and made it all possible. Ryan, I didn't ever meet him when I was in Minneapolis, but I bought one of the albums of 2 of his brothers. I had bought a cassette from his older brother and bought a CD of his younger brother's band. And he was infamous at the time when I lived in Minneapolis. Something had just happened culturally in the Jehovah's Witnesses across the city that was like weighing heavy on everyone I met. And I was like the new guy, so I didn't get the full story and I didn't quite understand, but I knew there was something about this guy. And so like fast forward, I leave the religion after a few years being there. And a lot of these musicians leave the religion around the same time that I had known. I never knew Ryan. And then like a decade in, when I'm doing the crowdfund, I was like, do I just interview random people in this from the leftist thing? Or like I was talking to Eric, I think it was, I was like, I've been working with him and Cindy Elvendahl, who I was using their music to do my Ross and like actually be coming out project as like the soundtrack. And they were like, yeah, it's cool. You use our music after we left religion for your leaving the religion show. That's cool. And so I was like, wasn't there some guy that like had gotten out of the religion and it was he really involved in the music scene? That's what I remember. And they're like, oh my God, yeah. And he's like the godfather apostate. He's the guy.
Nice.
And I was like, do you think he'd be interested in being interviewed for my series I'm doing? And they're like, oh, of course, we'll put you in touch. And so that became this catalyst because he flew up to Denver because I had a studio set up and where I had lights and everything and just like everything ready to go. And he's like, oh yeah, I'll fly out to Denver one day. We'll do an interview. And I'd like doing 2 camera setup, multiple microphones. And he gave, first of all, he's like, oh, you want to know my story? And he gave me like a 12-page Word doc of like, he just like rapid like word.
Oh my gosh.
Just wrote a whole like intro to my life, the Ryan Sutter story. Yeah. And I was like, well, I definitely want to interview you. And then he came out and we did the interview. And then it was because of that interview going so well and so powerfully that I got to thinking after the crowdfund was over that I could use that as like the backbone of the film because it's like so powerful. But I would need to get more stories to corroborate and get more, because so many more musicians. They put out like over 17 years of him running Nuclear Gopher, which is, and you can see this in the video. No, you can't stand up. We all got tattooed after the film came out. But this is the Nuclear Gopher.
Love it.
Nuclear Gopher tattoo of the logo. But in the religion, this Korean American who's draft dodging the Korean thing because he's Jehovah's Witness, conscientious objector. He was holding the torch for a few years while a lot of the other musicians were having babies, and he made that logo. And Nuclear Gopher was like the name, but they like really solidified it with the logo, just kind of for fun. And anyway, so they made like one album a year basically for like 17 years. And then the whole thing kind of fell apart while I was living there and then collapsed after I left fully. And then a decade later, well, they kept making music. All these artists that got out made a bunch more albums. Anyway, so Ryan told his whole story and it's so heartfelt. And that's that first interview I did with him is what's in the movie. That's the backbone. And one thing when I talked to him about telling the story, he's like, it's so important to me that you tell the right story, that you tell the real story of the music, and you tell the story of what it was like to be there, and not just a hit job against the Watchtower, not just so much content out there, people pointing a finger at the Watchtower, and like they're like stuck in this mode of just disgust and sadness and self-pity and grieving of their moment because of what their religion has done to them, and they're the victim, like in this victim mentality. He's like, I don't want that. I don't want to be a part of a story like that, but I do want to be a part of a story. And he like this, and he like told us what he would like it to be, and I was like, I would like to tell it that way, and I would like your help to help me guide the story, because it's your story I'm trying to tell, and it's this musician artist story that I think will help grip and humanize the lived experience of people, and not just be another, oh, I'm so sad for this victim who suffered from some cult. What a poor, sad bastard this person is that we're watching on screen crying about how they miss their mom or whatever.
You said heartfelt. You said heartfelt. It was powerful. I remember I definitely felt like his pain, which I thought was really telling, that he did not hold back from the grief that he clearly was feeling at the time that he was talking. It kind of felt like he was still navigating closure at that time.
Yeah. Maybe we always will be.
Yeah. I think if anyone, that's listening, as you watch the film, I think I'm so grateful that he was a part of that. So you finish up production, you have great interviews, and you do the editing process, you get it together. What is kind of releasing and kind of putting it out in the world? What did that look like for you?
It's like such a huge lift.
Yeah.
So turns out making a movie is single-digit days for most movies. They're really well planned, and a documentary is longer because you do most of the storytelling in the edit. You don't quite know what the story is. You discover it through the filming, but I generally knew the story and I knew who I was going to interview. And you always have some kind of outline. So but that was like 7 days of filming over a 10-day period, plus the Ryan interview that one day in Denver. So short production, and that's pretty standard for a documentary. A narrative might even be shorter because it's scripted, so you know exactly what people are going to say and exactly what days and locations everything's going to be happening. took me 3 days to make a feature film, which is crazy. Most people think that's what movie making is those few days, but it turns out it's like an emotional struggle, discovery for 6 months, planning and like orchestrating, like getting trust of people that you're going to do this with them together, and then for like half a year, and then the edit took a year with multiple people, and so putting it together was a labor of love and trauma and whiskey and wine. And I got criticized by Chad in the film. He's like, I was like, oh yeah, so I did this over a few glasses of whiskey last night. And he's like, dude, don't you know? And he's like quoted a famous author, I can't remember who at the moment, but it's like, you write drunk, edit sober. He's like, you're doing it backwards. You shot the film sober and you're editing drunk, like you're fucking it up, dude.
That's funny.
But then, so distribution, so that was like, all right, I'm going to do this properly, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm going to try to learn. I took a class. I joined a group of filmmakers. I learned from some pros. I learned from some novices. I just was sucking up information, but ultimately I didn't want to put it on YouTube because that's like sort of the first thing I do. I don't want to, because you can never get distribution once you have it already out somewhere. So I tried to get distribution the proper way, and I was like, all right, maybe I have to go to film festivals. Kind of always wanted to see what that was like. Never had been to one. I love them. Turns out they're such a phenomenally cool place to gather so many kinds of artists together. And so did that whole thing, which is a huge education and cost and fun and a challenge. And that got us laurels, which are a pretty little thing surrounded by wheat that says your film deserves something, and no distribution. So then I was a whole extra year of like trying to figure out how distribution works. And I hired somebody that would like get paid if he helped us or not, if he helped us. And then it didn't work. And I hired another guy that I had to pay up front, who got me 3 offers who were all bad. I talked to my first guy and I was like, these are the offers. He's like, I could have gotten you these offers for free. I respect you and your film, and I wasn't going to give you this. So that was the whole thing. I rejected all those offers. And then in the end went with this new tech company that another guy warned me about. He's like a diehard film guy who I'm still friends with, and he hates them. But in the end, they got me on Apple TV. They got on Apple TV and Amazon. But before we did that whole thing, we knew we wanted to have like a marketing budget to be able to, once it was out, like let people know that it exists as a film.
Yeah.
So we did another crowdfund to release the film on Kickstarter, which helped us reach a lot of unique communities around the world. So it's more about the crowd than the fund, although we're super grateful for all the money that came in. We use it for marketing the film for like a year and a half. Thank you to everyone out there who contributed. There was like 200 people in the original crowdfund in 2018 and 300 different people who helped us in the crowdfund in 2024, 2023, 2023. And we released in 2024 in like January. So now it's been a couple of years. Yeah. 2-year anniversary just came up of it being out in the world. So please tell your friends. But yeah, that was a whole thing. And ultimately it's on Amazon, Apple, Tubi TV, Amazon, Apple for rent, Tubi TV with ads, YouTube movies and TV with ads, and then like 14 other channels. So wherever you search it and find it, none of it gives us any money. It's set up to give us money, but it's like a penny per hour of viewing. And how many times are you going to rewatch this film? You know, it's an absurd sham.
Wow.
Like the whole film industry is upside down. It doesn't make any sense, and it's
the music industry too, man. Like
yeah.
The Spotify royalties, and it is all upside down. And then you have AI disrupting, and now everyone's like, make a song about this.
So ultimately, you just need to have it. Everyone just have it on while they're at work, just constantly on repeat.
I'm thinking about like just doing a marketing push where I just send the Blu-ray to your mom who's still in the religion. Yeah. So like, just put in the comments the address of your Jehovah's Witness family, and I'll send them a Blu-ray.
So I wanted to take a second and kind of pay homage to the poor witness artist, because man, like, I mean, everything we've talked about is so similar to my story, you know, like the making music with witnesses, the growing together. and other forms of art too. There are so many things that I enjoy doing that I wasn't able to do as a witness. And we unpack a lot of trauma with people. We
Mm.
talk about, the alcoholism, the two-facedness of their parents, the physical abuse. I mean, really dark stuff. But this is something that is like, for an artist, for like an intellectual, for someone who's into stuff like that, the pain of having to suppress your creativity, and or lose your friends and family when you express yourself creatively, having to censor yourself constantly, not being able to be your genuine self, wearing a mask, having to carefully choose your friends and who you confide in. Like, it's a different sort of long-term trauma. And especially as creative people, like, we have deep hearts, and it's painful, man. So I'm excited to watch. It's probably going to make me cry. I don't know, but
Mission
I'm
accomplished.
thinking I'm going to be empathizing the entire time. And
Yeah.
That music track will hit at the right
yeah,
moment and just really.
I'm glad you made it, man, because we tell a lot of stories, and there are a lot of witnesses with so much potential
Mm.
who never got a chance, and no one wants to be the victim, right? I don't want to be the guy who's like, well, my band could have done this, my band could have done that. But also, I think about it every week, you
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
man, I loved doing that. I wish I would have kept doing it. I miss it. So I don't know, man. I'm glad that you were able to capture that, you know,
And I'm
and
excited
speak
for
to it.
our listeners
Thank you.
to have some awareness about this when this episode does finally come out. Um, and yeah, I think a lot of them will have the awareness and go track it down and look at it. And I think that's huge that your art and your story can get out there for everyone. So I guess in closing, where can people find this? You kind of mentioned it already, but if you want to put some of your socials out there and website and whatnot.
I'm not using my socials much anymore, and I've only ever really used them for releasing the film.
Sure.
I don't post a lot, but you can follow me. I'm Scott Homan on Instagram and Facebook, and then Witness Underground on Instagram and Facebook. And then for watching the movie, you can stream it from your television, any smart TV on the Apple app for renting, Amazon for renting, Tubi TV for free, YouTube Movies and TV free on any device, and also put it on my own channel. So it's on the Banana Island Films channel for free, with ads, I'm sure. So yeah, it's out there, and I hope you watch it. And one thing that when I was really like trying to get the film out there and get reviews on Rotten Tomato, Amazon, etc., wherever you review films, I thought that was going to like have an impact and help reach, because it might get on lists somewhere. Like Witness Underground somehow isn't even on films about Jehovah's Witnesses lists anywhere. Like, it's really crazy. I googled it the other day. I've been like taking a little over a year break from this topic in the film. I was like, I wonder if there's any progress anywhere. And it's like, no one even thinks of it as a film about Jehovah's Witnesses, and it very much is. Or they've not updated their websites.
Wow.
And then people didn't really review the film very much. The people that did, thank you very much. And I just think it will have an impact over time. It's it's going to be a slow burn, it turns out. But there's something that really beautiful that was happening, which I really appreciate, where people were looking up who made the film and then finding out my contact information and then writing me a note about how much they cried or loved it or resonated, heard.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, it's actually something
It
I
was
was going to
powerful.
ask you. Yeah, I'm glad that you shared that. That's something that Trent and I get too, where people contact us directly. So I understand that emotional feeling as well as when you put in work and put shit out there and it resonates with someone. And I don't know, a common theme that always comes up is like we're not alone and we have a message and we're being heard. There's a lot more visibility in this space, which I think is amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, I love those messages, and it's really great. Share it with your friend as well. Like, if you like the film, like, I would love to hear that, and so would the people in the movie, especially because it's really not. I'm not in it. It's not about me at all. It's about these musicians and their lives. My life had a lot of parallels, and we learned about some of that in this episode. But
Is
right to them,
pretty much everyone in the film, their they're pretty reachable on socials, or they have their own contacts?
Yeah, and they're continuing to make new music. If you like the movie, or if you watch it after this, witnessunderground.com. But also, so I didn't actually say that, witnessunderground.com for any information and to buy the albums. You can get a version there, but you should support the artist directly on their Bandcamp. And nucleargopher.com is up and running again. So
Nice.
if you haven't watched the film, probably most of you listening to this haven't. It's kind of this amazing thing that became a catalyst, that there was this music studio recording albums and creative people, genuinely wonderful artists in this religion, who a lot of these artists went and made music on their own independently or with other studios and other creatives in Minneapolis and other places. But then when the movie came out in 2024, Ryan Sutter rebooted the studio on his property.
Nice.
And he'd been recording there for years with his different bands, but like he's been recording a bunch of new bands there. So you can get Eric and Cindy put out a new album under I'm botching it, but it's something in Caro. But you can find it on nucleargopher.com.
Sakura and Caro.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, Sakura and Caro. So there's some cool stuff coming out, and it's exciting. And it's like one of the big arcs of the film that helped me understand my place as well is that the people in the religion are the victims. People are actively being indoctrinated and controlled and enslaved. And truly, this is considered slavery, what we used to live.
It's mental and emotional and spiritual slavery.
Yeah.
And technically
physical.
on the global scale, modern slavery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I know
we are not the
sometimes
victims. We're the successfully navigated cult mind control, and we got out. So don't pity us.
yeah. I think sometimes it's hard in the moment to think about the impact you have and the things that you put out in the world, how they're impacting people. But I will tell you, Scott, you've done it and you're doing it. And so sometimes it's hard to just slow down and hear that, because we're constantly in go mode. What's the next thing? But it's like you did it. And so I'm grateful for you. I'm thankful for you to put all the hard work into that. And I'm excited about what's next for you. So you've teased some things. Is there anything you can kind of share that's kind of next on your plate?
Well, I've been meeting this afternoon with a film I helped out. It's a young filmmaker duo, and I shot a few things in New Zealand. I didn't get to that part of my chapter, but the film took me to New Zealand for Decult, the Cult Awareness Conference, as our international premiere. And I stayed.
Yeah, we can touch on that briefly if you'd like. I think it's important.
Definitely check out decult.net, I think it is. Decult, just Google Decult. And Anke Richter is a German author of Cult Trip, and she made this conference, and it's phenomenal what it does. It kind of does what you're intended to do with this podcast and a few other like Cults to Consciousness, who's a Mormon, ex-Mormon person who does, like, she interviews people from all different kinds of cults. Decult did this beautiful thing of curating many, many cults in a live conference for 2 days. And they brought in artists to perform, and they showed my movie as part of our the final act of Witness Underground coming out was that it premiered at this amazing Very Aligned conference, and people sitting in the audience are like cult experts from around the world, and like people that are like advocates and therapists and psychologists who came from a cult background, who are like trying to do work to help people and to change the laws and governments to help dissolve cults around the world. Like really, really like big level things, big people doing big things in the world. And Decult's amazing. Might I bring them up?
Yeah,
you should go attend, watch.
I appreciate you
them.
sharing that.
What was the premiere like? What was the reception? I mean, it must have been incredible.
It was sold out, and the Q&A was special. And there's this one woman from the Austrian like government organization about skepticism. I'm botching the title, but it's like quite a big deal in Austria and Europe in general, in the EU. And she was like, "This, I want to show this to government officials across Europe."
Whoa.
Like,
wow,
holy shit. That was really special. It was the only film shown there, so that's also really special. Like, it was like, this is the film for Decult. And then Anke also hired a local crew to make a film about Decult that I helped in the edit, and I'm also in it, called Beyond Belief. Decult Beyond Belief. It's a short, like 20-minute little intro about what Decult is.
And then what are you doing now?
So while I was there in New Zealand, I also found this guy who was doing a music project. It's huge. It's called, so important. It's not huge. It should become huge. It's called Music and the Mystical Experience. And so, Music and the Mystical Experience is music designed based on PhD research over decades about the qualities of music that can aid in someone's therapy if the therapy's assisted by psychedelics. So, psychedelic assisted therapy, the album, like what is it like? So, they made 3 albums with very, very unique criteria where, like, the film's about the unique way that they create this kind of music that can help people process their trauma
So
using
is it like
psychedelics.
frequency based, or like,
It's
I'll have to look it up.
musicians with different instrumentation. So like they use music, all different kinds of instrumentation on the first album. The second album, there's a lot of vocalizations and
Like Gregorian chants.
not quite, but more of that vein, I guess. And also indigenous instrumentation. And the third album they're doing has a theme of death, and they use only tungapuru, which is the Maori indigenous instruments only, and their vocalizations only.
Wow.
That's very cool.
Okay.
At least that's the last I heard. That's what he's working on next. But his presentation's 90 minutes. And anyway, so I worked a little bit on that film, and that film just got accepted because I'm helping them do their film festival strategy. And they got accepted to their Target Film Festival as their world premiere at Dock Edge in Auckland, which is local. It's good for the filmmakers, great for the project. It's all local artists being supported, and they invited the film, and also of 6 projects that are included in the film festival. They have these 6 silos that are like 30-meter diameter, like 80-meter tall silos, where they're putting immersive experiences in each silo for this 1-week period. So they invited this music project, into this one of these silos to do this installation for the public to come and go, and also some private events that we're going to do there.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
I'm kind of quite involved in that, and I'm very excited because it's something to look into if you've experienced trauma of any kind, or complex PTSD, or religious trauma syndrome, all of which is not considered real according to the DSM, but is real because we're experiencing it. And
Yeah,
there's
for
lots
sure.
of programs we try and therapy we try to grow, deal, process. But psychedelics can be an avenue, and they're not legal everywhere, and there's risks associated with them, but most of them aren't death. Most of them are, you should probably do this in a safe space with people you trust.
And maybe
Kind of
just a
threats.
sprinkling of ego death, but that's it.
Yeah, no big deal. But I've had a lot of growth in those things. I mean, I feel like they really help me process. So I'm a big advocate for those things becoming more legal and more available, and ending prohibition, and a film about the topic. Hoping to maybe do something more on that topic with the same crew and the same project, but diving more into the psychedelic assisted therapy side of it more than the music, even though the music is what the project is. It's for this bigger purpose.
I love how busy you are for things that matter.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're keeping many different art forms alive too, man, and injecting some love into them.
It's
Thanks, guys.
yeah.
Appreciate hearing that. I always wonder, am I doing anything of value in this life? But I try to work on something meaningful. So thank you.
Yeah, I think, as you no doubt know, you it's such a battle of balance because you want reach, but the work in itself, in my opinion, is the importance, and getting it, and just creating, and the hope is to not focus on the end of, like, oh, this needs to reach all these. The focus is creating and putting it out there, because you don't want to be in that mental space inappropriately, especially for too long. But I think, from what I've seen of your work, and just you as a person and a human, I really, really appreciate you being in this world, in this space.
You just said the
Thank you so
magic
much.
word, Derek. You said the magic word too. You called yourself a humanist,
Yeah.
and I am finding that, to me, that's at least the highest phase that I've reached yet of my journey. Because whenever you leave, you have to rediscover what it means to be human in a free way, truly. And so naturally, usually, when that's done correctly, you come out with this desire to also help other humans.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's challenging because I have a mindset of like I can't carry the world's problems. We weren't designed that way. But there's also, well, here we are. It's like we're in this space. We do know a lot of the problems that are happening. I tend to go. I can only choose so many avenues because we only have so much time and energy. Things that I'm passionate about to try to help. But it does suck. It sucks when you know that there's issues in the world that are out of our control. Yeah, like I said, very appreciative of you, and I'm looking forward to all your new projects and things that are happening. Um, yeah, is there any kind of final thoughts, either of you, before we close out? I'll
I
start with.
appreciate you interviewing me. I mean, you've done so much to talk about my story and the things I've created. So thank you. And
Yeah,
I think you're doing a great job. This is a really refreshing podcast. It made me think two things that came up during this podcast for me. One is you're carrying the torch, and it feels like there's always needs to be this new refreshed wave of someone trying to tell these kinds of stories. And I felt like I did it at the time I needed to do it, but I needed to take a break. But it's like, oh my God, there's this guy doing this podcast, and it's not just you. There's a few, but there's always like a new batch, and it
yeah,
feels like, okay, this is actually what it is. I don't have to do it for the rest of my life. There's going to be a new group of people who have the energy and the desire to carry it forward.
yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah,
well, we're
it's like,
starting. Go ahead, Derek.
oh, I just like you just don't know, how long even for this. I interviewed someone on, and she had a podcast for years, and the mindset is like this is evergreen.
Yeah.
It's like you
Mm-hmm.
get to a point where you're like, okay, I've done my part, and now I can kind of move on to other agendas. But yeah, I appreciate being in this space right now and having great people on like yourself. What were you going to say, Trent?
I forget.
I got another one.
It was
Keep going.
awesome, though.
Maybe you'll remember.
So my other one was that I never really thought of before this conversation, but there's this period of time that a lot of people, and I do on my interviews, but you also did, is like, how long did it take you from like skepticism and being physically and mentally out to being physically in, or mentally in, being physically and mentally out, and then finally being physically out, mentally out, like fully getting out. And then there's also the transition of I needed to take a break for 5 or 10 years before I thought about it again and then start a podcast. Then like that's another process.
Yeah.
But like it's almost like because we're squeezed in a high control world to such a crazy limit with real threats and abuse that we are experiencing like the multi-year, multi-decade unraveling of cognitive dissonance.
Mm-hmm.
And we're living through the cognitive dissonance, like resolving itself.
Yeah.
Like the dissonance by doing these kinds of projects, by taking these spaces and like coming back to the topic and like hashing out those stuff that doesn't resolved yet. That like we're canceling out the dissonance.
Yeah.
Over time.
I think it's powerful. One of the things that you just said too, I don't know, me personally, I try not to be too reactive. And sometimes when I see reactivity online, like for instance, you'll see some people that are like, I just woke up, and then they start making a YouTube channel about it. I think that there's something great about that. But I also know what's going to happen is the probability they just need to speak and word vomit everything out. But they're not, in my opinion, they're not in the space yet where this is more than just word vomit. Does that make sense? It's
Like
like
early on, there's a lot of feelings and thoughts to process, but they're not clarified, maybe.
they're getting out. They're like, I just need to talk. And I think there's some therapeutic things in there, but they don't have a mindset about what they're trying to do. They're not even in a state where they're interviewing people where they can be in the right mental space and clarity to help navigate these tough conversations. Because they've talked to no one. They haven't fully gone through every single thing to then be in a safe kind of foundational space where they can have these tough conversations. That's kind of my mindset. I think that there's some room for that rawness. And I think it's important to kind of have multiple you know, you're having a drink a Friday night and you're like, I want to turn something on and I want to align with that person who's raw and angry. I think there's some value there. But I think, you know, Trent and I talk about it a lot. I think there's some value there is people being in that angry phase and that emotional, just, you know, and aligning with people that, oh, we're in this together. But I think there's some value in navigating out of that and kind of having a conversation like we've had today that's full of nuance and different ideas and mindsets and, you know, tough topics and hopeful topics. But I think that that mindset of like just finding your path out is really important and to not linger. But it's also hard, you know, as people that have gone out to choose to come back to help.
Yeah.
So that's my word vomit.
I think it takes all voices.
Yeah.
I wanted to say my last thing I remembered was
Yes.
heritage. We're starting to see heritage forming among XJWs. So like it's already been almost 10 years for me. I'm already passing on lessons that I've learned to my daughter about how to think freely, you know, about not indoctrinating her with the XJW or the JW stuff, you know. And
Yeah.
I don't know, you talked about the torch passing, you know, and multiple layers of people in different ways trying to do this kind of work. And since 2020, there's a huge exodus, and there's going to be, you know, 5, 10, 20 years from now, this is going to be a new kind of culture, a new heritage, I think,
Yeah.
forming of like XJW, ex Mormonism, ex high control group, as people become more aware of it. So
Yeah,
I'm just glad we're all a part of it, you know?
Yeah, we're adding to it. We're adding to the knowledge base by doing these kinds of programs.
So people are going to learn so much, not from what we said today, but just from you, bro. You know, just like your life, you telling your story.
Yeah, I think you have a powerful voice in this community. So it's you may not even see it because it's thankfully layered with a level of humility. You know, you definitely, hopefully, either you're innately this way or done some work, maybe through psychedelics to not have that high ego. But no, appreciative
Thank
of you. I guess you were going to say one final thing, and we'll close out.
Oh, just the guy that to Trent's message about heritage, the guy that I said has the largest library outside of Bethel, right here in Colorado. Sadly, he passed recently, but he was like a big deal in the 80s on early internet news groups when the internet was pre-email, pre-website. There were just news groups you could like subscribe to news feeds, and maybe it was email already, but you could get them sent to you. And so he was like an XJW writer back in the 80s, and he met his wife that way.
It's
For
unbelievable.
their whole lives, they lived together. And he was like an MIT grad, and he was like came out of the religion, and he was still a Jehovah's Witness in MIT.
Wow.
And he was like started this news group thing. So he was like an icon, and he's still well known in the XW forums for like a massive contributor to the space. And to have him see me, he's like, I have to meet you. We have to know each other. We're doing the same work, but you're like 20 years later. I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, okay, it's cool. Like I was taking the torch.
Yeah, that's humbling.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we brought that up a few times. Like, can you imagine waking up in the 70s or 80s without the resources and the feeling of community versus now?
Right.
I think that's huge. You probably could easily back then feel like I have no one. Am I right? Like,
Right.
you know, you're constantly kind of because now you can say, "Am I right?" and then you just go online and go, "I'm right." Like,
Yeah. Yeah, you'd be like, let me get the Watchtower Index out and figure out if I'm right.
yeah. But no, it's so
4
cool.
years later.
I think passing the torch is huge, and you're inevitably always going to be a part of this high control group and ex cult kind of narrative. You know, specifically with the JW lens, but I think just in general, you know, there's a lot of more curious people out there that are like, I never grew up with any of this stuff, but this is really fascinating because I think sometimes people think a cult has to be drinking the Kool-Aid. It has to be a compound in Texas, you know, that gets raided. And it's just not true. Like there's many layers of control and how they look may not seem very Hollywood movie style, but there's a lot of stories that are coming out where people weren't given the opportunities or had a level of control that was very damaging.
Yeah.
So
Maybe one last shout to Janja Lalich. That's that's why I brought up decult earlier. Janja Lalich was the keynote speaker, and she came from a political cult in the 70s, and she's been working for 40 plus years on helping people unwind cult dynamics. And she was like quite a higher up leader in this political cult at the time. She wrote quite a few books, and now she has a really cool program that I want to check out. Maybe you guys are interested as a musician, Trent, especially. It's about like refining your love with music after leaving a cult. And it's
Wow.
like $30 for 4 sessions, like total $30. And so it's with some person who helps people like reconnect with music, even if you have no connection ever to any kind of art. I was like, wow, it's really cool. So Janja Lalich is, you look up Janja Lalich. She's great. She's really amazing human. Done a lot of good work.
love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I've said it a bunch, but I'll say it again. Time is super valuable. I really think there's something amazing about long form conversations. And so I never have a cap on it. We're just going to have these great conversations. I hope that it resonates with everyone. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Yeah,
And
thank
of
you
course,
to both of you for the same. I
yeah,
totally agree with you. Long form content on this topic is important.
yeah. And again, thank you everyone for your time listening, viewing if you're on Patreon, and we'll talk with you soon.
Thank you for joining us on this journey in this era. If you found today's episode valuable, please share it with someone who might need it. Check the podcast description for our socials and other information.
Please consider supporting us at Patreon at patreon.com/culturepod. If you'd like to tell your story, please contact us at cult.ture.pod@gmail.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and stay free.